Bonjour, this is Book 2 d'écrivez l'aspect historique au Québec pour le français à la lumière de la Révolution tranquille, expliquer la situation actuelle du français au Canada. So we need to understand this a little bit. We'll just see the whole thing in English once. Just give me one moment. So this is the English version. French in Quebec and Canada, history and the current situation. Historical aspect, French in Quebec and the Quiet Revolution. Historical background, Quebec is a French-speaking province in Canada. It was colonized by France in the 17th century, that means 1600s. However, in 1763, France lost Canada to Britain after the Treaty of Paris. From that time, French speakers in Quebec remained a majority of the population, but they were often a minority in politics and the economy. So before the Quiet Revolution, before 1960, Quebec society was very religious, so strong influence of the Catholic Church, not very modern, weak economy, few industries, poorly educated, many students dropped off in the school early. Economically dominated by English speakers, especially in large businesses. So the characteristic was the language spoken was French. It was controlled by the English speakers, controlled by the church, few French speakers in the university, important jobs mostly held by the English speakers. So the pride in being in Quebec, pride in the Quebec culture was very low. So the Quiet Revolution 1960 to 1970, the Quiet Revolution was a period of major social, political and cultural change in Quebec. It began after the Liberal Party led by Jean Lesage was elected in 1960. Their slogan was, "It is time for a change." Main goals of the Quiet Revolution: modernize the state, government and public services, build an economy controlled by French-speaking Quebecers, reform education and social services, strengthen the French language. Laws to protect French. So there's a law 1969, there's a law that promoted French but still allowed choice of the school language. Then after a few years, in 1974, the law declared French as an official language of Quebec. Then in 1977, the law made French mandatory in schools, government and commercial signage. So results of the Quiet Revolution: new public colleges and universities in French were created, Francophone businesses were developed, greater pride in the Quebec identity, French became the main language of education, business and public life. So what is the current situation of French in Canada? Canada has been officially bilingual since the Official Languages Act of 1969. This means that federal government services must be available in both French and English. French and English are equal official languages. However, the real situation differs across provinces and territories. Distribution of French speakers in Canada. So, we have 80% of the French speakers from Quebec. French is the majority. Strong laws protect the language. Only 30% are from Brunswick, officially bilingual province, good access to services in French. The 5% from Ontario, important French minority, services exist but are sometimes limited. 3% from Manitoba, small but active communities. So from Alberta, less than 2%, very small French-speaking communities, hard to keep the language alive. So the next point, what are the challenges facing French? Even with efforts to protect French, the language under threat, especially outside Quebec and even within Quebec in some areas. For example, what is the challenge? Fewer people speaking French at home, especially in Montreal. Fewer children speak French at home. So, English speaking immigration. Immigrants often choose English for work or study. English dominance at work. In large companies, English is often the main language. That is a challenge. Cultural assimilation. Young French speakers sometimes adopt English speaking culture. So, recent efforts to support French. Quebec passed a law in 2022 which aims to strengthen the use of French. More French required in businesses. French mandatory in some colleges. Government services must be offered in French first. Francophone education programs across Canada. Schools for French-speaking children, even in the minority areas. French immersion programs for English speakers who want to learn French. Why is it important to protect French language? French is a key part of the Canadian history and identity. Quebec is a center of the Francophone world in North America. Protecting French means protecting a unique culture in the way of life. So what's the conclusion? The Quiet Revolution was a major turning point for Quebec. It allowed Quebecers to take control of their language, economy and culture. Thanks to this movement, French remains strong in Quebec today. However, outside Quebec, the French language is fragile. French-speaking communities need continued support to survive in a mostly English-speaking country. Canada has made progress, but more efforts are still needed to promote and protect French in schools, workplaces, the media, and culture across the country. So this is the whole thing that is required for this particular question. So we'll finish this off in French. So l'aspect historique, le français au Québec et la Révolution tranquille. So the whole answer is that in Quebec, French language was dwindling and there was no pride in Quebec. Now then, because of the Quiet Revolution, French has come back and now it is proud about, now the pride has returned. So that is the whole story. So you have to write the years and what exactly happened. So context historique. Le Québec est une province francophone du Canada. Elle a été colonisée par la France au XVIIe siècle, mais en 1763, la France a perdu le Canada à cause du traité de Paris. Le territoire est devenu britannique. So this is the first thing I have to say. First thing is, Canada was basically a part of France. This one was taken by Britain, and it became a British colony, and everyone started learning English. So this happened in 1763. So depuis ce moment-là, les francophones du Québec ont souvent été minorités, politiques et économiques. So economically, politically, they were minorities, même s'ils étaient majoritaires dans la population. So even if there were a lot of people, but still they were French. So what happened? Avant la Révolution tranquille, so before 1960, what happened? La société québécoise était, so how was the Quebec society? Very religious, a little bit modern, like weak economy, few industries, peu instruit, that is, beaucoup d'élèves arrêtaient l'école, tôt, dominé par les anglophones dans les grandes entreprises. So, what are the characteristics? Langue parlée français, pouvoir économique, les anglophones contrôlent l'économie, éducation contrôlée par l'église, peu de francophones à l'université, emploi important majoritairement occupé par des anglophones, fierté de la culture québécoise faible, fierté de pride. La Révolution tranquille, 1960 à 1970, La Révolution tranquille est une période de grand changement sociaux, culturel et politique. So socially, culturally and politically, we had one period where we had great changes. This revolution has brought about social, cultural and political changes. Elle commence après l'élection du Parti libéral de Jean Lesage. We can remember his name like Jean Lesage, the wise. En 1960, son slogan était Il faut que ça change. You must remember this. So in 1960, we had this election and we had this Il faut que ça change slogan. So what we should remember is, what are the principal objectives of this revolution that started? We have to moderniser l'État et créer une économie québécoise contrôlée par les francophones, réformer l'éducation et les services sociaux, renforcer la langue française. So, les lois pour protéger le français. So, in 1969, promouvoir le français, mais elle permet encore le choix de langue à l'école. So, but de la loi, what is the goal in 1969? Is to promote French. So, but still, people could choose in the school if they wanted to take French or English. From 69 then till 74. Then 74 the law changed. So French became the official language in Quebec. Then in 1977 what happened is French became the compulsory language in the school administration, and in every way French became compulsory. So résultat de la Révolution tranquille. Création des écoles supérieures publiques et d'universités en français, développement des entreprises francophones, plus de fierté pour l'identité québécoise, affirmation de la langue française comme langue de travail, d'école et de culture. So, French became the main thing here. The second point is la situation actuelle du français au Canada. So, how about Canada now? How is French in Canada right now? Le Canada est un pays officiellement bilingue depuis la loi sur les langues officielles de 1969. Cela signifie que les services fédéraux doivent être disponibles en français et en anglais. Le français est connu comme langue officielle au même niveau que l'anglais, mais la réalité est différente selon les régions. Répartition des francophones au Canada. So Quebec, 80% are francophone. So we have Ontario 5%, Manitoba, Alberta, so Nouveau Brunswick. So we have less. So français est majoritaire, loi forte pour le protéger. Provence officielle bilingue, bon accès aux services en français. Minorité importante, mais services parfois insuffisants. Communauté active, mais petite, très petite communauté, difficile à préserver la langue. So this is the situation in Canada. How is French? In Quebec, we have lots of French people. So what is the problem? Problem pour la langue française. So what is the problem? Malgré les efforts, le français est en danger. En dehors du Québec et même parfois au Québec, voici quelques défis actuels. So French is in danger outside Quebec and sometimes inside Quebec also. What is the problem? Baisse de la langue à la maison. Moins d'enfants parlent le français à la maison, surtout à Montréal. Immigration anglophone. Les immigrants choisissent souvent l'anglais pour travailler ou étudier. Poids de l'anglais dans le travail, dans le weightage of English in the work. Dans les grandes entreprises, l'anglais domine. So English is dominating in the big enterprises. Assimilation culturelle. Les jeunes francophones adoptent parfois la culture anglophone. So the young francophones are adapting the anglophone culture. So exemple de mesures récentes. So recently what has happened is, So Quebec has created in 2022 one law pour renforcer encore plus de français. Plus de français dans les entreprises, français obligatoire dans certains collèges, services gouvernementaux d'abord en français, programme d'éducation francophone dans toutes les provinces, école pour les enfants francophones, programme d'immersion pour les anglophones qui veulent apprendre le français. So even for English people, we are trying to teach French. So pour protéger le français, c'est important. Le français fait partie de l'histoire et de l'identité du Canada. Le Québec est le cœur de la francophonie en Amérique du Nord. Préserver la langue, c'est préserver une culture unique. So what is the conclusion? La Révolution tranquille a changé le Québec. Elle a permis aux Québécois de reprendre le contrôle de leur langue, de leur économie et de leur culture. Grâce à cette période, le français est aujourd'hui fort au Québec. Cependant, au Canada, hors du Québec, le français reste fragile. Les communautés francophones doivent être soutenues pour survivre dans un environnement majoritairement anglophone. Le Canada fait des efforts, mais il faut continuer à promouvoir le français dans tous les domaines: école, travail, médias, culture.